Welcome to Pit Stop with Don and James. On this episode, I wear a new hat. Also, we'll be talking about the news of Yuki Tsunoda and Liam Lawson switching places. We're going to preview the Japanese Grand Prix, and we are going to make some bold predictions.
Welcome to Pit Stop with Don and James. I'm James.
I'm Don.
Hey, how's it going, man? How's your week been?
Yeah, it's been good, and little withdrawals from the early season races. I got nothing to watch this weekend. It's just we just got to talk about Formula One. But yeah, the week's going good. As you can see, I got my new hat.
Yeah, big news this week. You got a new hat.
Right. Yeah, my old one I guess I never talked about this on the pod, but I actually got that McLaren hat that I've been wearing. It's from the Grand Prix in Austin 2021, I think it was. And
it's been a heck of a time.
Yeah, and everybody probably noticed who's watched. It was pretty hammered, and it makes it look like it's, 4-year-old hat, but I assure you it looked that hammered after just being at the Grand Prix for the one weekend. It was really warm in Austin, as I guess you could imagine. It was nice
and humid, right?
Yeah, very humid, very hot, and just beaten down in the sun for a lot of the time. And so that's how it can be when you go to the Austin Grand Prix. I actually think I'm going this year, so I'll have to kind of keep you in the audience apprised of my travel plans. I've got my flight and my hotel booked, which is key because they fill up fast. And then I have not bought my tickets to the Grand Prix, but as of a couple of days ago, there was still a lot of available tickets. Actually, I learned a thing. I didn't know if people knew this or not, but at least at Austin, that's where I've been planning to go. So I've been shopping the tickets for that Grand Prix, but they have a thing. And so the last time that I went, we did general admission tickets. You can bring lawn chairs in. You can kind of like go sit anywhere you want around. There's like a lot of open spots to sit. And that's awesome. But what happens is if you don't get there right on time or get there early in the morning, then you're struggling and you're fighting to actually secure a great spot to sit, and so I had thought like I'm going to try the grandstands, and so they actually do this thing where it's like there's 3 days, right? There's Friday, Saturday, Sunday, and you can pick a different grandstand seat for each of the days, and it's not that expensive.
That's pretty dang cool.
I know, it was pretty awesome. So I was like, okay. I was trying to pick some tickets, and I was like, okay, there's some cool seats at like turn 4, which is like that. There's the S curves at Circuit of the Americas, and then there's some that are a little further down. I think it's like turn 8, which there's a cool like I guess it's like a hairpin at that area.
I'd call it a hairpin.
Yeah, and then there's a big straight right there, and so those two spots would be cool. And then turn 1, I sat up at turn 1 on, I think it was the Saturday of the Grand Prix in 2021. And turn 1 is a sick place to be because you see those cars coming. It's a big straight on the front straight, and then like it has this huge elevation and then into a really low speed turn, and then they just gun it from turn 1 into the S turns. And so it's a really cool spot to see, and I was really impressed by it. It surprised me that throughout the race, people took that turn 1 very differently. I thought like there's a racing line, everybody's gonna once the order is kind of sorted out, everybody's gonna hit turn 1 roughly the same way. And throughout the race, it was not that. There's guys coming in a little wider, a little tighter, and that really impressed me. And we were sitting right up at the first spot in front of the grandstands. And so anyway, the grandstands at turn 1 would be really awesome because you get up you're on elevation. So if you get into the grandstands, you're up a little higher. You can see almost the whole circuit from turn one. So that was my goal. Get a seat at turn 4, turn 8, and turn 1. And I think that's still available. I got to make sure I take care of it this week so I can.
Yeah, you got to nab it, man, before
That's
they're
right.
gone.
And then there's some covered seats too. I was thinking about that because it can get hot out there if you're sitting out in the sun. And the covered seats are pretty nice. But those, I don't think those are at turn 1, and you have to like go down to turn 19 or one of those other turns and get the covered seats. But anyway, yeah. So I'll keep everybody posted about my Austin F1 adventure this year.
Yeah, man, that sounds like a great time. I wish I could go. That
We'll
sounds like a
we'll
lot
do
of
it.
fun.
We'll do it together one of these years.
We'll definitely do it again for sure,
Yeah.
and we'll report back, see if it's actually worth all the hype or not.
It is. You got to, I mean, if you're an F1 fan and you have the opportunity to go at least once, I think you got to do it. I I can tell you that it was kind of my first time going to a big race of any kind, and the cars are impressive. Like the speed, the agility of the cars is so cool to see live. I mean, you get a sense of it when you watch the TV broadcasts, but to actually see them live, I thought like I was stunned by it when I first went. Obviously, I'm sure you've already kind of gotten that sense. I think you going to indie races frequently or whatever, so it might not be quite as shocking or impressive to you, but I did. It was my first time going and seeing these like top tier cars, and I was blown away.
Yeah, I've yet to go see an F1 race. It's on my to-do list though, for sure. Uh, I'd like to do Canada. I think Canada would be a lot of fun. I think Japan would be a lot of fun. Um, Austin, Austin definitely would be a lot of fun. I hear the food there is pretty stinking good for being track food. Texas, of course, being famous for their barbecue.
Yeah, they had some good stuff. I mean, and there's no shortage. Like they, take care of you over there. There's all kinds of food places and drink places all up and down the grid or the circuit, I should say. And it was, yeah, it's a fun time. And then the after hours, stuff. Austin has great places to go eat as well. And anyway, our listeners may or may not know this, but I used to live there, in Austin. I actually lived in a suburb north of Austin called Round Rock, and um, I've been away from there for about 3 years, and I miss it a lot for the food specifically. The heat is kind of unbearable, but but um, but the food's amazing, and it's also a great town. Just Austin is a really cool city. There's great live music. You and I share a passion for music, James, and so it's a great place if you like live music. There's all kinds of stuff to go listen to. They call themselves the live music capital of the world, and I think that might just be a marketing thing, but they do. I mean, I think everybody knows them from Austin city limits, so I guess maybe
Of
they've got
course.
the claim there.
Yeah. And if music's not your thing, there's a great comedy scene out there too. Joe Rogan has put a lot of money into it. So, yeah, man. We'll have to definitely plan something out. I've never been to Austin. It seems like a lot of fun. Obviously, specific for Formula One. I'd love to do that. I know we talked about big news, you getting a hat, but I think we got to cover the other big news of Yuki Tsunoda replacing Liam Lawson for the upcoming Japanese Grand Prix. Man, what? Obviously, the news broke previously this week. What were your initial thoughts on it? Were you shocked? Were you surprised? Were you devastated? What do you think?
I gotta say, I wasn't shocked. Liam Lawson was struggling the first two races. We know that Helmut Marko is a very unforgiving boss. Um, I felt like Christian Horner was cagey when asked in the immediate aftermath of the Shanghai Grand Prix. He was like, "Well, we'll have to look at the data." He kind of refused to say one way or another. So I think everybody kind of saw this coming. I think I feel a little bad for Liam. I mean, Liam, Liam is not a super likable personality, I guess. He kind of
You
seems
don't think so?
a little bit brash. Yeah, I think he seems a little brash, but I mean, it's kind of too soon to tell. Maybe I'm rushing to judgment there, but he, he's young. He didn't do bad when he filled in for Daniel Ricciardo, and I'm not. It was a little shocking to me, I guess, that he got the seat and Yuki didn't get the seat initially. So that was maybe more what I was surprised by, and I did feel bad for him because I don't think stuff like that is good for a young driver's mental space, you know. So, but it didn't wreck Albon. Albon got you know got moved out pretty quickly, and I feel like he's rebounded nicely, and has you know put together a solid career post Red Bull. And
Carlos Sainz too, being at Ferrari, and still. I mean, he's yet to find his feet at Williams, but I still, it's a long season. I think he's got a great way to go there. But he crushed it at Ferrari.
yeah, so yeah, I think that though I guess maybe I'm being I'm uh, meandering a little with my thoughts. I feel like Liam probably should have just been at Racing Bulls in the first place, and Yuki should have been at Red Bull. So they just added this layer of drama by bringing him up too fast and then having to bust him back down. And but I am excited for Yuki. So Yuki, I think, deserves it. I think he's driven well the first two races in very difficult conditions. And obviously, we've talked a couple times in this podcast about home races. I'm really hoping that this is one of the scenarios where a driver comes in at a home race and does something special. And I think we'll know a little more after the first practice session how Yuki looks in that car. What do you think? I mean, I just spent a long time kind of rambling there. What are your thoughts?
Yeah, so I mean, initially I thought Yuki should have had the seat. I think that was the sentiment amongst a lot of people, that he should have been the one in the seat to begin the season. Um, Obviously he wasn't. And I went back and did some statistics right from last year. So Liam Lawson joined at the U.S. Grand Prix last year. Um, at what was it? At Circuit of the Americas. And so, including the sprint races, Liam Lawson and Yuki Tsunoda went head to head 9 times. And in those 9 times, Yuki Tsunoda outqualified Liam Lawson 7-2, but he only finished ahead of Liam 5-4 in those 9 races. And they each had 1 DNF within that time. So it looks like, at least just from those stats, Liam Lawson has a difficult time with qualifying. Even this year, so far in the 2 races, he has struggled in the qualifying sessions, but during the race, he seems to make it up. That comes down to a bit of strategy within the team, and then him being able to fulfill those strategies. But I think he's also very quick. He's also a very aggressive and good driver when it comes to head-to-head battles and passing. I think he has the ability to do it flawlessly. I think he's a really good driver. But the big question is does Yuki, is he going to be able to drive this car, right? Because Liam Lawson has already said it's a difficult car to drive, and even Max Verstappen, who's known to have an aggressive driving style, he says it's a difficult car to drive, even though it's still suited to fit his driving style. So does Yuki stand up to it? That's kind of the question. I think that's the big question on everybody's mind. Is he going to be able to drive it? I really want him to have a good result. I've always liked Yuki. I've always thought he was quick. He was a bit of a hothead when he first came in, cursing out his mechanics and everybody that basically came in his eyesight. But he's definitely cooled off. He's a much more level-headed individual now. At least that's how he presents himself to the public now, which I think is really good. But he's also a really good driver. I went back and watched the Japanese Grand Prix from last year, and Yuki had a top 10 finish, which was good. In fact, I think he was the 10th place, finishing in the top 10. But he also had some great um, overtakes within that race, passing on the outside within the S section. Probably I don't know how they number, but probably 5, 6, somewhere in that ballpark. Passing on the outside of the S's going up the hill, which is crazy. He didn't do it once; he did it twice. So I think this is obviously his own home Grand Prix. He probably knows that track better than most, I would imagine, just growing up around there. And I hope he can. I hope he can do really well.
Yeah. Yeah, his overtake to get P10, I think he passed Hulkenberg
Yes.
and yeah, in the S turns. And yeah, I rewatched that. I saw that highlight and it was a nice move. I mean, the dude is good. I mean, Yuki is he's solid. It was funny when he came in, you mentioned him being a hothead. He also had this reputation somehow of being not, kind of lazy, I guess. He didn't really like doing his training and the physical work. And he's come around on that, I think, too, is with from some stuff I've read. So yeah, I mean, seems like he's really, trying to do everything he can to do to be the best he can and prove himself. And I'm proud of him and happy for him for this. He's also kind of a funny dude. He seems like he's got a good sense of humor and I like that. I always like these guys with good personality also out there. And so yeah, I'm excited to see what he does. Uh, I agree with you. Everything that I've read about the car is that it is difficult to drive. I was just reading him some stuff, and Albon, he described the car as like drive as playing you're playing a video game and you've got the sensitivity set all the way to the max. So it's a very like twitchy, I guess. Like you make one small mistake and it becomes really hard to drive. So uh, I got my concerns, I guess you could say, about whether Yuki's going to do well in the car. But I can tell you this: he couldn't do much worse than Liam did the first two races. So uh, I think hopefully they give him enough time to adjust and reward him for working hard to get there, so that he gets a chance to adapt to the car and show what he can do in there. Because I think he will. I think he will do well in the car. Checo, for as much as Checo Perez got dogged for not, being as competitive as they needed him to be. He seems like of the number two drivers for Red Bull, kind of did the best at figuring it out that I've seen. Better than Albon or Gasly. Did Kvyat ever drive
Danny
for Red
Kvyat,
Bull?
yeah, he was a Red Bull driver.
Yeah, so it was. there's a there's been a
Red Bull
string of,
and Racing Bulls.
right. Yeah. So anyway, just I'm hoping they give him enough time. Checo had a couple of years. Yuki, hopefully they give him at least the rest of the season to figure out that car. And yeah, that's what I'd like to see. And I would love to see him do something nice right out of the gate, because, like I said, I'm always looking for those home race uh, glory situations, but it just doesn't happen all that often. And so, but it kind of did for him last year. P10 for him last year was a good result, and done in a nice fashion with some good overtakes.
Yeah, my only real concern about Yuki is that his results are pretty sporadic. He's not exactly consistent. I went and looked at just the past 2 years. So in 2023, he had two DNFs with one DNS, but he got top 10 6 times, with eighth being his highest place, and he did that twice. but he also finished below 15th twice. But then in 2024, he had 4 DNFs. He was in the top 10 8 times, so he improved by 2, coming in 7th 3 times, but he also came below 15th 3 times, with everything else being between 10 and 15. So that's my only real concern. He doesn't really seem to have a lot of consistency from track to track. So, but obviously, he's shown he's really good at Japan. So I'm really hoping for a good result from him. But I guess we'll see what the weather and the gods have in store for him.
Sometimes it's kind of hard to judge the consistency when you're in a difficult car. I mean, sometimes you have to almost look at the teammate head to head to see if there's anything you can gain from or tell about things from that. And his performance against Daniel Ricciardo, I think, was somewhat telling, because I think people would tend to say, Ricciardo was an experienced driver, and so, I feel like he at least competed well against Daniel. So, yeah, I didn't look at the stats. Maybe you looked at that. We talked a bit about the head-to-head comparison against Liam. Seemed like he outperformed Liam clearly, which leads you to believe he, maybe has a better handle on the car than his teammate, and so if that's the case, you can kind of make what I usually look at is, okay, the driver that out of the two teammates consistently outperforms the other is closer to squeezing the max out of the car. So, anyway, that's yeah, I think that's what I'll be looking for in the upcoming races. Let's see if Yuki struggles with the car, because I think we've talked over the last couple podcasts about how that second Red Bull seems to be difficult for everybody to get a handle of. So,
Yeah, and if we're going just kind of off how things finished in China, um, he where did Sonoda finish? Sonoda finished in 16th, a lap down, but of course he had the broken wing, so we can't really judge that from that wasn't his fault. But then in Australia, he finished 12th in somewhat precarious conditions. So it's we haven't had like the perfect race for him this season to see just kind of how the Racing Bulls are doing. Even Hadjar, he crashed out in Australia, but he did finish 11th in China. So it's still really early and really hard to say where the Racing Bulls fall within the field. I think I'm hoping this race will give us just a little bit more insight of how all the cars are stacking up against each other.
Yeah, we've talked quite a bit about Lawson and Yuki. I'm very curious now. So I have felt like the Racing Bull car has looked impressive, especially compared to where they've been. And it seemed like what we are noticing is that it almost seemed like conditions and strategy really hurt Yuki and Isaac in the first two races. Like, they were running much closer to the front runners than they have for a long time, and then it, with Yuki's wing and with the rain and with having to switch tires, I think that has hurt their results in the first two races. But I think as a team they look pretty strong. And now what I'm curious about is they're going to have two rookie drivers at Racing Bulls, and I've wondered, how's that going to affect things? And maybe you have some thoughts about that. What do you think that's going to do for them? Is that going to keep them at the back of the pack, or are we going to see something special?
Yeah, just to touch like on the performance. So Sonoda and Hadjar both qualified within the top 10 for China. So I think the pace is definitely there. It just comes down to their race pace, where I think find they need to find the time and the performance to keep themselves within the top 10. Um, everybody keeps saying Lawson is a rookie. I just don't classify him as a rookie because he did a good chunk of the last year's season. And I get it. This is his first full season, so they're counting him as rookie. I don't really count him as a rookie. Um, but Hajar, he's shown that he has talent and that he has the ability. It's just the race pace and maybe a little bit of strategy to do with it too that gets him caught out. Rain doesn't seem to be his forte yet. I think he still needs a few more rain races under his belt before we can see how he stacks up. Rain being the great equalizer, but I think Lawson will do really well at Racing Bull. Last year he did a good job alongside Yuki, and so I don't see why he would. I don't see why he would drop off. I think this car is going to be a lot more familiar to him. I think when he gets in it, he'll feel a little bit more at home within the car, and I think he'll have a great result coming into Japan. Is it top 10? I don't know. Hajar is going to be competitive. I think Hajar will out qualify Lawson, but I think Lawson might take him in the race. Lawson's race pace being very, very good, and his qualifying not so much. Over one lap, he doesn't seem to be great, but over 50 something laps, he seems to be really good.
Yeah. Well, that's always an interesting thing when it comes to these races. For our listeners, we have a little text thread with a few people about Formula One, and I think I posed this question to the group a while back, where, what is it that is the difference between the one lap speed and the race pace speed? And I still haven't quite figured out all of that out, but it seems to have a lot to do with tire degradation, balance, and then it the other thing I think is like the actual internal workings of the car, like the temperature of your engine and all this kind of stuff. Like if you start running too hot, you got to back off, and you can't just like jam it in and go full speed, so yeah, I think tire temp, tire degradation, and then just your internal temps seem to be a huge factor in what you can do when you have to be out there for the full 50 to 60 laps of running hot. But so it seems to me like they found some ground. Racing Bulls found some ground in the one lap speed, because they've done well in qualifying the first two races, and they're challenging tracks, both of them.
Yeah, exactly. But Japan is different. It's a lot more, I don't know, smooth running, I guess you could say. Like there's not really a lot of tight turns. It's a lot of S section and long sweeping turns. So it's a different track altogether, right? So I think we'll see a lot of movement. At least I'm hoping so. We'll see a lot of movement within the grid.
It's one of my favorite tracks. I love tracks where it's a lot of high speed turns that aren't really like big. I like a lot of things. I guess I like variety, but probably my favorite track on the calendar is Jeddah. I really love that. Like it's just them weaving their way up the track and then turning around and weaving their way back down the other side, that kind of
It's not
stuff.
a lot of room for error either.
Yeah. And that's, I think, one of the reasons why I like it so much. They're just going almost flat out through turns. And I think that is kind of one of the distinguishing factors of Formula One. One of the things that sets it apart is that it's not just an oval, which there's a time and a place for an oval or whatever, but like they make this variety of tracks with different kinds of elements in them, and so I really enjoy that. I think that's cool. Anytime that they're just putting themselves in jeopardy by having to go full out through challenging turns. And so Suzuka, I think, is kind of like that. I think is kind of what you're getting at, is that they're it's smooth. You're doing turns, but you're also gunning it pretty fast through most of the those turns.
Yeah, exactly. And there's elevation change in there too. Japan has also been home to, some really great races historically and some pretty big crashes historically. A lot of people have gone off. It's one of those tracks where if you just put even a wheel onto the grass, because it's a lot of long sweeping turns, once you touch that grass, you're kind of done for. Danny Kvyat had a big crash there last year. Logan Sargent crashed in FP1, I think it was. Just put a wheel onto the grass and hit the barrier, like that was it. So uh, we'll see.
Yeah, yeah, some jeopardy. Gotta have that at a track. That's one thing about like I'm super partial to Circuit of the Americas because it's where I lived for so long, um and I think it's a beautiful track and I think it's cool, but they got a lot of spaces where there's runoff, and so there isn't as much jeopardy. Although we see some spins there too, but um, I did have one other thing I wanted to talk about too, to kind
Yeah,
of go
sure.
back to the last year's race. Okay, last year was Red Bull 1-2 in the finish, and then
Yes.
Ferrari 3-4, right? So I think it was Carlos and then Charles 3 and 4. So are we going to see Ferrari find themselves in this race? What do you think?
uh, I don't know. They had a really strong showing in China. All things considered.
Until the DQs.
Yeah, until the DQs. The
I mean, it
which
was
is
it was
unfortunate.
it was a respectable showing. Where were they, 4-5, or were they, yeah, 4-5? I think.
I believe so. Yeah, they did have a decent showing. I think they'll continue to build on it. Lewis Hamilton, of course, really likes this track. Leclerc really likes this track. A lot of drivers say it's one of their favorite ones to be at. Mainly, I think just for the fans. Quite honestly, the fans there, I think, are second to none in terms of at least geographical. But yes, so Verstappen and Perez did have that 1-2, and then Ferrari were 3 and 4. Um, I do want to point out Alonso started fifth last year and got sixth. Uh, do we see Alonso coming back in? Uh, I really hope so. I'd like Alonso to at least finish a race this season. Since he's at 2 races, so he's technically not counted since he has no finishes to his name yet. But for going back to your question for Ferrari, yeah, I think Ferrari will have another great showing this year. Um, you know, I think Lewis Hamilton really is coming to terms with the car. I think he really likes the car. He's learning how to communicate with his team, and it shows. They had a really good running in China. I think he'll have another really good running here. I think he'll finish top 5 for sure. Barring any disqualifications or somebody hitting him, something that's out of his control. I think he'll have a really good run.
I would love to see Ferrari do well. I do, you know, as much as I want Yuki to do well, I do want Ferrari. I would love a Ferrari 1-2, to be honest, in this, because I want him back in the hunt. To be fair, but yeah, I'm wondering if they're gonna go out there with some like super thick, like 2x4 sized skid plates on the bottom, and you they're gonna buy some new scales and make sure their cars are the right weight before they get out there.
Yeah. Sonoda, in a Racing Bull, he was in the top 10. Do we see him furthering his top 10 result? I think he'll at least be in the top 10 for sure. But how far up do you think he'll get? Do you think he's going to come top 5? Do you think he's going to just miss out, maybe 6th, 7th?
Oh man, I think for Yuki, if he scores points, that will be a good result for him. I don't know that he can really. I really think he can. have a bad result. I mean, but I think that being in the top 10 would be a good result. I think yeah. I think he's gonna be, let's just say he'll be P7 or above. That's gonna be my guess. He'll be P7 or above. And I because I think that the car can get him there, and I think he's got the talent and the you know the home track. He made the most of the home track last year. He's gonna do it again this year. Will I could be eating crow after FP1 or FP2 if it looks like he's just not able to come to grips with the car. But I think he's gonna do it. I think he's got a fire. I think he's a bit of a fiery guy, and I think he's gonna want to do this. And I'm hoping that it comes together. So that's gonna be my prediction. P7 or higher. Um, and I think that the other thing I think he's got maybe going for him with Red Bull is they've got a better handle on the strategy, because I do think that with Racing Bulls, that's what's burned them the last two races, is that just it wasn't so much bad calls, it was just awkward decisions, and then the wing it in. So the awkward decision I think in Australia was they just everybody had to make a difficult call about when to go on to back onto the inters, and I feel like they kind of that they got lost in that shuffle. But then the Chinese Grand Prix seemed like the single biggest thing was that they just had that weird wing failure. That was just a freak accident. But they had dropped back a little bit by the time that happened too. So it seemed like something to do with the way that they called the pit stops or something. Um, so I think he's got a little bit stronger strategist, probably a little bit stronger strategy from Red Bull, and that's going to serve him well.
Yeah, and there's a team that's just been kind of silently getting good results, and that's Mercedes, right? They finished both of them in both races, and they've both been in the top 10 both times. Kimi Antonelli had a fantastic drive in the wet at Australia. You know, just dodging and weaving and moving up the field. He had a fantastic run. Um, and they're second in the constructors at the moment. Do you think they'll continue to move up, or you think they're just going to continue silently, kind of sitting in the top 10? Because I think George Russell's a really good driver. I'd like to see him, end up on the pedestal.
Uh, yeah, I mean, they're. I'm trying to keep. The only reason I'm sitting here thinking and letting my wheels turn is because I've got so many other teams that I'm like trying to keep straight as to the top of the pack. I do still think McLaren is clearly the fastest car, and so um, I think that they've got the chance to be uh, to take two of the podium spots in this race. But then I said earlier that I want Ferrari to get one too, so they're in the hunt. But like Mercedes, I think could very well pull it off too. I think, like you said, George is a strong driver. I've thought been a strong driver for a long time, and I think he's started to blossom, as the number one driver for Mercedes. And Kimi has seemed to be a pretty good gamble for Mercedes. Like it could have gone really bad in Australia with that rain race, and he delivered, and then followed it up on a track in Shanghai that was eating up people's tires. And I don't think Toto could have asked for a better result, to be honest, from a true rookie in that car. So yeah, I would say we can't count them out. Um, but I do think that some inconsistency from Kimi is to be expected somewhere throughout this season, and it could hit any time. But yeah, that I think I think Mercedes is not to be toyed with in this season. I think they're strong.
Um, I feel like I've already given away my bold predictions for the next race. I'll just kind of recap it. My bold predictions would be, Yuki has a top 10 result in the Red Bull, qualifying and finish. I think he'll stay inside the top 10 for both. Hadjar will out qualify Liam Lawson, but Liam Lawson will pass him during the race and finish ahead of Hadjar. And I'm going to do it again. I'm going to predict another Williams inside the top 10. Of course, I've made the switch from Signs to Albon, so I think it'll be Albon that'll be in the top 10.
Yeah.
And those will be my 3 bold predictions. What about you, Don? Do you have any hard bold predictions for the upcoming race?
So I'm gonna do you one better on the Williams. I think both Williams will end up in the top 10. So I'm gonna go with
Dang,
that. That's
that's
my
super
bold.
bold.
Oh yeah, I'm going all in. Um, so I think that is my bold prediction. I You could say that my Yuki prediction earlier of being a P7 or higher is a bold prediction. I think that's pretty. I think that's going pretty out there to think that he's gonna, in his first Grand Prix in that car, is gonna get that good of a result. But I'm gonna stick with that one. And then I'm gonna say something kind of crazy.
Okay, give it to me.
On these bold predictions, I like to really uh, bring the heat. Your bold prediction was Hadjar's going to out qualify Lawson, I think, and I'm going to say that they are going to hit each other in the race.
Oh
Two
man,
racing bulls are going to collide, and it's going to be because we've got an angry Liam Lawson trying to prove himself. So there's my bold prediction. That's really really hard to go to see that one coming true, but that's my bold prediction.
Okay, I'll take those. No, those are some crazy bold predictions.
Yeah, that's right. When we do bold predictions, I don't want them to be I don't want them to be weak. I want them to be bold. And then if they happen, it gives me something to be looking for in the race. I'm like, oh man, let me be watching those Williams like a hawk this coming weekend or the next weekend.
Yeah, we've kind of had some accident-prone individuals in the past. Nikita Mazepin, Nicholas Latifi, Logan Sargent, and we don't really have an accident-prone driver this year. At least not that any have emerged so far.
I was starting to think that was going to be Ollie Behrman after the 2 incidents in Australia. But he righted the ship. He's been decent
very quickly.
Yeah. And I'm glad for that. I hate to see these guys. Like, I still feel bad about Mick Schumacher and Mazepin. And although I will say this, we got to see a Mazepin. I got to see one live at Austin. So
there you go.
It was we were all looking for it, and I can't remember at what point it happened. I don't know if it was in the race, but it was in one of the practice sessions or quali, and we were sitting in around turn 19, and there's a big general admission grassy area over there, and it's really cool because you can walk right up to the fence, right? And I think there's some gravel there, turn 19, and then I think the last turn is turn 20. So it comes in, it's a left-hander, and then a very short straight into another left-hander before you head up the front straight. And coming around that first or turn, I think it's turn 19. Yeah, because turn 20 is the last one. So then turn 19, and he just came into
around,
spun around, and literally sitting in the gravel right in front of that fence right there, and that's where we were all sitting there. We got to see a Nikita Mazepin spin.
Oh man!
So yeah,
definitely that's got to be a highlight.
It was. I mean, and that's one of the fun things. You feel bad for Nikita, I guess, and I think in the end he was kind of done a little dirty because of the political situation with Russia, and
yeah.
But yeah, he did have he earned himself that unfortunate nickname because of how many times he spun out. But and then Mick Schumacher, I think, had kind of hit what ultimately did him in was crashes, right? He was costing Gene Haas too much money.
Yeah, just yeah, it was that season was unfortunate, but
Yeah, I don't.
it is what it is.
Speaking of spins, you know, I made that prediction my bold prediction last time that Pierre was going to crash and cost some money finally because he's got a pretty good streak going of no damage to the Alpine. That didn't happen, and I'm glad my bold prediction was a bust on that front. So
Fair enough.
yeah.
Well, thank you again for joining me this morning, Don. We look forward to Japan coming up this weekend. I'm gonna watch it live and talk about it next week.
So James, before we part, I'm going to tell you a little anecdote here.
Give it to
This
me.
I was out at Guitar Center yesterday, so I like to take my son to Guitar Center, and he loves to like just test out new guitars. So we go over to Guitar Center, and we had gone a few weeks ago, and there was I was wearing my McLaren hat when we went in there, and so this young buck that was working at the Guitar Center, he approached me and he's like, "Hey, you like McLaren?" And I said, "Yeah, I'm a fan." And then he started talking to me, and I came up that he really liked Formula One as well. And so we were shooting the bull about Formula One while my son was shredding on a guitar at Guitar Center. So then I was there yesterday, and I saw this same employee, and I went up to him and started talking to him again about Formula One. I told him about our podcast, by the way, so hopefully he listens.
Awesome.
So if he's listening, um, thanks for listening after I told you about this. But anyway, he told me this really good idea, I thought, and he said that he watches every week the races every week, and then what he does is wherever the race is, he goes and gets food for the local, like, whatever. So like this upcoming race, he's like, I'm gonna get sushi or maybe some ramen or something like that. So I think this is a great idea. This is a brilliant idea, in fact, and I think maybe we need to steal this kid's idea. And then
Yeah, it's not a bad one.
we can talk about the food and do a little food rating as well during the podcast. So you think about that before the next race, and then we can circle back if that's if that's the consensus that we want to try this out. But I really like the idea because I think there's some great places they go in the world with Formula One, and there's great cuisines, and Japanese food is awesome. So maybe it would be a good time to jump on that bandwagon.
Sounds good, man. Yeah, we'll try it out. Sounds fun.
All right.
All right, man. Well, thank you. I'll talk to you next week. Look forward to Japan.
All right. To quote Ollie Behrman, ciao.
Ciao.